January 15th, 1919, a cold winter afternoon in Boston's North End. The air bit at your cheeks. People hurried along streets still dusted with snow. Children played in alleys. Horses pulled delivery wagons. Life was ordinary, the kind of ordinary that reads calm on a postcard. At the edge of the neighborhood stood a towering iron tank. It was nearly 50 feet tall, a hulking drum of riveted steel owned by the Purity Distilling Company. Inside it sat roughly 2.3 million gallons of molasses, thick, dark, and sweet, destined for rum and industrial alcohol. To the men who walked past it daily, it was simply a landmark, a strange, domestic monster that hummed in the sun. Then, at 12:40 in the afternoon, the monster broke. As seam let go, metal sheared. The tank suddenly gave way, and 2 million gallons of molasses warmed by the winter sun, heavy as despair, ripped out like a living tide. Witnesses later recalled a wall of brown moving faster than a galloping horse. In some places it rose to 10 feet. In others it crashed over everything in its path. It barreled down Commercial Street with the force of a small tsunami, carrying iron, wood, and human bodies in its wake. Imagine a street turned into a river of syrup. Horses were carried off their hooves. A delivery cart became a raft. Storefronts were pushed clean from their foundations. Molasses-filled basements seeped into the cracks of houses, gummed shutters and windows shut. People screamed. Rescuers waded through sweetness that stuck to boots, to uniforms, to skin. Men tried to pull neighbors free and found they were trapped in a grip more powerful and patient than any rope. The chaos swallowed names and faces. Some survived by clinging to lamp posts or clambering up onto roofs. Others were not so lucky. 21 people lost their lives that day. Many more were injured, lungs choked with sticky air, limbs crushed or trapped, hands and faces coated in so much molasses that it took hours to see the person beneath. For months afterward, residents said the whole neighborhood smelled of sugar and yeast, a reminder that seemed to cling to the mind as much as the clothes. Rescue was a brutal, strange work. Horses and carriages were dug out. Corpses were found days later, recovered from basements and cellars where the molasses had pooled and hardened. Doctors treated wounds that were both mechanical and chemical. The syrup itself became an enemy, coating wounds and thwarting attempts to clean them. Men in heavy coats and wire cutters worked until their hands bled, trying to free people and pull life from the muck. In the hours and days that followed, questions multiplied faster than answers. Why had the tank burst? Who was to blame? Investigators examined the metal, the seams, the design. They found poor construction, thin plates, and shoddy welding. The tank had been filled hurriedly and repeatedly, sometimes beyond the levels engineers considered safe. Witnesses said the company had been warned about creaking seams, about odd noises, warnings that were ignored or minimized. The disaster revealed a simple, terrible truth. Carelessness, corner cutting, and the blind chase of profit can make a city unsafe. The legal aftermath was long and painful. Families sued for lost sons and daughters. Small businesses sought compensation for ruined livelihoods. The case that followed changed how American industry thought about responsibility. Inspections tightened. Laws were rewritten. But no law could put back the lives taken or the afternoons lost to sticky silence. There is a strange human tenderness threaded through the story. Neighbors wrapped survivors in blankets, shared whatever food they had. Strangers dug through the heavy brown to find one another. A grocer's ledger, a child's coat, a mother's scarf, small objects recovered from the molasses became the last proof that someone had existed. Years later, people in Boston still remembered where the molasses had run, and some said, with the odd mix of grief and stubborn humor that communities sometimes keep, that the North End tasted sweet for months. The Great Molasses Flood is both absurd and awful, a syrupy wave that seems almost like a scene from a tall tale, yet a real catastrophe with names and graves and legal papers. It asks us to look closely at the ordinary things we ignore, the tanks and wires and warnings, and to remember that safety is a quiet work, not an accident. It asks, too, that we honor those who labored and those who suffered, not by stories of heroism alone, but by the slow, steady work of making things safer for the next person walking down the street. On a winter afternoon in 1919, a city learned this the hardest way. The molasses hardened, the city rebuilt, and life continued. But echoes of that strange, sticky day lingered, in lawsuits and lessons, in the smell that would not leave for a while, and in the memory of neighbors who pulled, neighbors out of sweetness and into something like safety.